Hare Krishna. We continue reading from Nectar of Devotion. We're in chapter 2. So here is a general description of devotional service given by Sri Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. Previously, it has been stated that devotional service can be divided into 3 categories, namely devotional service in practice, devotional service in ecstasy, and devotional service in pure love of God. Now, Sri Rupa Goswami proposes to describe devotional service in practice. So when we began the chapter, Srila Rupa Goswami says that there are 3 categories of devotional service. One is devotional service in practice, sadhana bhakti, following the rules and regulations. The other is devotional service in ecstasy. It's called bhava bhakti, with emotions. There's emotions involved. And then devotional service in love of Godhead, pure love. Means the love for Krishna has already been aroused. It's prema bhakti. Usually at that point, the living entity cannot live in this world anymore, because the love is so much, the separation from Krishna is so much that then he goes to Krishna. So practice means employing our senses in some particular type of work. Therefore, devotional service in practice means utilizing our different sensory organs in service to Krishna. So practice, what does it mean, devotional service in practice? So we have been given the senses, we have the eyes, the ears, the nose, the hands, legs. So we are thinking that these senses are for our enjoyment, and we are trying to enjoy with these senses. Whatever comes our way, we are saying it's for me to enjoy. But what is bhakti involved? Sadhana bhakti means all the senses that we have, we use them in the service of Krishna. Engage them in the service of Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. Some of the senses are meant for acquiring knowledge, and some are meant for executing the conclusions of our thinking, feeling, and willing. So like the knowledge acquiring senses, they are like the hands, the legs, the eyes, the ears, the nose, isn't it? Eyes, ears, nose, tongue. Yeah, eyes, ears, nose, tongue. Those are knowledge acquiring senses. Yeah. And some are meant for executing the conclusions of our thinking, feeling, and willing. So practice means employing both the mind and the senses in practical devotional service. Our mind, what's the function of the mind? What does the mind do? Thinking, feeling, and willing. That's what the mind does. So what practically means we have to do? We have to engage our mind and our senses in devotional service. This practice is not for developing something artificial. For example, a child learns or practices to walk. This walking is not unnatural. The walking capacity is there originally in the child, and simply by a little practice, he walks very nicely. Small children, they have this natural ability to walk. And then the parents will just hold their hand a bit, make them practice a bit, and soon the child is walking, even running. The parents don't teach or don't make the child to practice to fly, to flap their hands like a bird and start flying. Why? Because that's not a natural thing. No matter how much we try, flap our hands for however long, millions of years, we won't be able to fly. So with a little practice, the child can start walking because the natural ability is there. Same is with devotional service. Similarly, devotional service to the Supreme Lord is the natural instinct of every living entity. It is there in each and every one of us, devotional service. That's our natural position, the position of the soul. When we say natural position, it's not that we are meaning for the body. Yeah? It's with the soul. The soul has this natural inclination to engage in devotional service. Even uncivilized men, like the Aborigines, offer the respectful obeisances to something wonderful exhibited by nature's law. And they appreciate that behind some wonderful exhibition or action, there is something supreme. So Prabhupada is pointing out that, there may be some people living in the forest, they don't know anything about, they're not really studying the scriptures, they have not had the opportunity to study the scriptures or something, but yet they also understand that when they see some, like maybe a huge magnificent tree, or some work of nature, they bow down to it. They understand, oh, this is the work of something, or there's something great or someone great behind this. There is something supreme there. So this consciousness, though lying dormant in those who are materially contaminated, is found in every living entity. And when purified, this is called Krishna consciousness. So our desire, or our um, the natural inclination, to serve Krishna is there in every living entity. And when we are doing it um, for the pleasure of Krishna, this is Krishna consciousness. It is there in each and everyone's heart. Every soul, every soul in the uncontaminated stage, in the pure state, is Krishna conscious. Now we have simply forgotten. We have become body conscious. We are thinking we are the body. That's because we are in the conditional life. There are certain prescribed methods for employing our senses and mind in such a way that our dormant consciousness for loving Krishna will be invoked as much as the child with a little practice can begin to walk. So this love for Krishna is there in everyone's heart. Now we have forgotten it. We simply have to rekindle it. We simply have to revive it. It's there, it's dormant. It's not that we have to put it there artificially. No, it's there in everyone's heart. We simply have to reawaken it. It's like sleeping and you need to reawaken. One who has no basic walking capacity cannot walk by practice. Similarly, Krishna consciousness cannot be aroused simply by practice. Yeah? So, like we are making the child practice to walk, and he can walk. Why? Because he has that natural ability to walk. If he didn't have it, no matter how much you make him practice, he won't be able to, right? Like it's see for like anything. Like we make a machine, we can't make a machine walk. Well, of course, you'll say we put a robot there. But then even somebody has to press a button. So we are trying to understand this point, that because the natural inclination is there, then by a little practice, we are able to do it. So actually, there is no practice. When we wish to develop our innate capacity for devotional service, there are certain processes which, by our accepting and executing them, will cause that dormant capacity to be invoked. Such practice is called sadhana bhakti. So what is the sadhana bhakti? We do certain things by which the bhakti which is there in our heart can be awakened, can be invoked, can be revived. That is what this practice is. That we just do something which is going to revive this love of Krishna in our heart. Every living entity under the spell of the material energy is held to be in an abnormal condition of madness. Now we may think, I'm not mad. Why is somebody saying I'm mad? What's happening? We each of us think we are like a controller, the enjoyer. I have it all figured out. But what in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, generally the conditioned soul is mad. Why? Because he's always engaged in activities that are the causes of bondage and suffering. So that's why Bhagavatam is calling us mad. We are under the ropes of material nature. And we continue to act in such a way that will keep us longer and longer here in the material world. And that's the reason we suffer, because we are spirit souls. We are not supposed to be in the material atmosphere. We need to be in the spiritual atmosphere. So all our activities, our actions, our thoughts, words, we act like a mad person. It's a question of mistaken identity. You see, when we see somebody is not in their senses, we say, oh, this person has gone mad. They're thinking or speaking something which is totally uh, illogical or irrelevant. That's how we are doing. We are souls. But we are so much entrapped by this material energy that we are thinking we are the body, and we act in that way. The spirit soul in its original condition is joyful, blissful, eternal, and full of knowledge. Satchidananda. That's the position of the soul. The soul is always Sat Chit Ananda. Always, always Ananda, blissful, joyful. Sat, eternal. The soul can never die. We may think, okay, right now I'm in this body, and after I come out of this body, I stop to exist. I don't exist anymore. No, cannot be. We are the soul. The soul is eternal. Eternal. There's no beginning, no end. And someone will say, I will become God. But how can then the soul still remains? How can we become God? The consciousness is always there. Then we may say, but this I is what we have to give up, and that's the false ego. And when we give up the I, then we are nothing or we are God. No, but then that means we are thinking the soul is material. We are thinking that the soul is going to stop to exist at one time. But the soul is spiritual. Spiritual means eternal, means never gonna end, never gonna die. The consciousness is always gonna be there. Always. So that's eternal and full of knowledge. Completely understands his position. The soul in the pure state understands who am I, what is my real uh, nature, what's my real activity, completely full of knowledge. Who's so that is the position of the soul. Only by his implication in material activities has he become miserable, temporary, and full of ignorance. Now we are suffering. We are suffering our mind or our body or other living entities or some pandemic or something. We suffer. And temporary. What is temporary? The body is temporary, not the soul. We are thinking that. Why? Because we are thinking we are the body and full of ignorance. We are completely lost. We don't know who we are. We don't know who's God. Completely lost. So this is due to vikarma. Vikarma means actions which should not be done. So what puts us in this bondage of material nature is vikarma. We do activities which we should not be doing. Therefore, we must practice sadhana bhakti, which means to offer mangalarti, deity worship in the morning. So what is sadhana bhakti? Certain practices that we have to do. What are those practices? Do deity worship in the morning, mangalarti at the Brahma Muhurta time. To refrain from certain material activities, to offer obeisances to the spiritual master, and to follow many other rules and regulations that will be discussed here one after another. So there are certain rules and regulations to be performed. Because we are not on the level of love of Krishna. We don't even know Krishna, so how can we love him? So what do we do? But that's the goal. That's what we have. We have love of Krishna, but now what to do? So then we do certain activities and we don't do certain activities so that this loving relationship can be revived. These practices will help one become cured of madness, as a man's mental disease is cured by the directions of a psychiatrist. So the sadhana bhakti cures the conditioned soul of his madness under the spell of Maya, material illusion. So when the mind has gone crazy, then we go to the psychiatrist and then he helps us to, whatever with the treatment, then we get better. So we get cured. Now we have this madness of material disease. We are thinking we are the body. What to do? We approach the spiritual master. We practice sadhana bhakti. So Narad Muni mentions the sadhana bhakti in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 1st chapter, verse 32. He says there to King Yudhishthira, my dear king, one has to fix his mind on Krishna by any means. This is called Krishna consciousness. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, engage your mind in always thinking of me. Become my devotee. He says, man mana bhava mad bhakto. Man mana. Engage your mind in thinking of me. Narad Muni is also saying here, one has to fix the mind on Krishna. So we see there's never any contradiction between the devotees, Krishna, the scriptures, the guru, the sadhu. Has to be the same. There's no contradiction. Everyone keeps on repeating rather the same point. Because that is what it is. It's the truth. So that is called Krishna consciousness. It is the duty of the Acharya, the spiritual master, to find ways and means for his disciple to fix his mind on Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us an authorized program for this purpose, centered around the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. This chanting has so much power that it immediately attaches one to Krishna. That is the beginning of sadhana bhakti. Somehow or other, one has to fix his mind on Krishna. Our mind, we have so many thoughts in our mind. We have so many things going on there. But actually, who should be thinking of is Krishna. And so that we are able to do that, Lord Chaitanya has given us this Hare Krishna mantra. When we are chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we need to hear the mantra. We need to hear, and that helps us to fix the mind on Krishna. The great Saint Ambarish Maharaj, although a responsible king, fixed his mind on Krishna. And similarly, anyone who tries to fix his mind in this way will very rapidly make progress in successfully reviving his original Krishna consciousness. So Ambarish Maharaj, first he fixed his mind on Krishna. And that's how he was able to engage all his other senses in the service of Krishna. Krishna also says, engage your mind in thinking of me. Become my devotee, worship me. So once the mind is fixed on Krishna, then we will be able to quickly revive our Krishna consciousness. Now, the sadhana bhakti, or practice of devotional service, may also be divided into two parts. The first part is called service according to regulative principles. So we are talking about sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means there are certain rules and regulations. Some things we have to do, some things we don't have to do. So this sadhana bhakti there is two parts. One is that we are following the rules and regulations, whatever is given. Oh, you do like this, like this, like this. You don't do like this, like this, like this. And one has to follow these different regulative principles by the order of the spiritual master or on the strength of the authoritative scriptures, and there can be no question of refusal. So, where do these rules and regulations come from? Not that I make it up in my own mind. No, the Shastras have it, and the spiritual master also is telling the same thing. He himself is following it, and he is teaching others to follow. That is called Vedhi or regulated. One has to do it without argument. So, when the doctor gives us pills, do we argue with him? We don't. He tells us this is the treatment, you do this, and you don't, for example, you take these pills and you don't do certain things. Don't eat oily food, spicy food, regulate yourself. Uh, and then we don't argue with the doctor. We just follow what he's saying. Similarly, if we want to get cured of our madness, of our material disease, we don't argue with the scriptures or the spiritual master. We follow. So this is called Vaidhi Bhakti. Vaidhi. Another part of sadhana bhakti is called Raganuga. Raganuga refers to the point at which, by following the regulative principles, one becomes a little more attached to Krishna and executes devotional service out of natural love. So, what happens is that one may follow the sadhana bhakti, and by following sadhana bhakti, one develops attachment for Krishna. By following rules, regulations, under the directions of the spiritual master, then one develops his attachment. And once that attachment is developed, then he continues. It's not that he stops devotional service, but at that stage, he engages in devotional service out of attachment. And so that's called Raganuga Bhakti. So bhakti goes on. We also sing Prema Bhakti. Bhakti is there when it love, the stage of love. It's not that, because bhakti is the natural activity of the soul. As soul is eternal, bhakti is eternal. It's just that the mood is changing. So here we follow Vaidhi Bhakti, following according to rules and regulations. With that, one may get attached to Krishna. One may. And then when one follows engages in bhakti, out of this attachment or love, then it is called Raganuga Bhakti. For example, a person engaged in devotional service may be ordered to rise early in the morning and offer arti, which is a form of deity worship. In the beginning, by the order of his spiritual master, one rises early in the morning and offers arti. But then he develops real attachment. So in the beginning, one may not like to wake up early in the morning and offer arti, but he may still do it because that's the order. That is what you're supposed to do. So initially he doesn't want to do it, but still he does it. Then, uh, but then he develops real attachment. When he gets this attachment, he automatically tries to decorate the deity and prepare different kinds of dresses and thinks of different plans to execute his devotional service nicely. So this is Raganuga Bhakti usually happens after the stage of Nishtha. It's after the stage of liberation. Nishtha means all that firm faith, that steady, already that is liberation. And then the devotee continues to engage in devotional service. He gets this attachment, the ashakti, that he wants to engage. So it's a high stage of devotional service, but it's there. The devotee is so attached to Krishna that he wants to do things for Krishna. Not that I have to do it, but I want to do it. Although it is within the category of practice, this offering of loving service is spontaneous. It's natural. Nobody's forcing you to do it. So the practice of devotional service, sadhana bhakti, can be divided into two parts, namely regulative and spontaneous. So that is the category of sadhana bhakti. Regulative is Vedi sadhana bhakti, and spontaneous is raganuga bhakti. Out of the natural love, natural attachment, the attachment is spontaneous. Spontaneous. One wants to do it. Are there any questions or comments?
Okay. So for just, there are three kinds then, but in the first kind, the sadhana bhakti, there are the two divisions.
That's right.
And then the one is that we just follow as it is in the beginning, in the sadhana bhakti. That is the Vedai bhakti, that we just follow, we get up, we do the Tulasi Aarti, we sing. And then the second is when we develop a little more attachment and we try to do it with more of our heart. We try to put more of our efforts in it. Is it?
The second one is natural. It's a natural, spontaneous. Like a mother with the child is natural, spontaneous. Without thinking, the mother is so much affection for the child coming out. The spontaneousness is there. That is raganuga.
But that is still in the Vedai, that is still in the sadhana bhakti, the same.
That's still in the sadhana practice. It is because the devotee is continuing to hear and chant, and he's continuing, but he's doing it out of spontaneity, attachment to Krishna. He has gotten this attachment for Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and in Ragan, we are going to hear more about it. We'll continue reading. It will become more clearer further then. Yep. So we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining. And Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta ki jai, Hare Krishna.